Good morning, everyone. 2 more days and it will be the new year 2025. What really are you looking forward to in the new year? Compliments of the season, everyone. I am Nifemi Okuntoye and welcome to This Morning. As we approach the end of 2024, we continue to reflect on the year's most significant events right here in Nigeria. From the reinstatement of the regional national anthem to the Edo and Ondo state governorship elections, we also saw the commencement of the Dangote refinery, as well as the Port Harcourt refinery. It's been a year of notable developments, but it's also been a year marked by challenges, including the nationwide protests. There was a kidnapping in Kuriga. Thankfully, the over 200 children were released. Recall the tragic stampede we recorded earlier this month in places like Ibadan, Abuja, and I think Anambra. We're looking at 2024 in retrospect, and joining me from the United Kingdom is Ambassador Joseph Adebola, who is chairman of the Renewed Hope United Kingdom. He's also host of the Renewed Hope Global Virtual Town Hall Conference. Ambassador, thank you for joining us on the program this morning, and compliments of the season to you.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Glad to have you on the program. Let's begin with Nigeria's economy. As you know, in the outgoing year, the economy was characterized by high inflation rates, rising living costs, and posed challenges for many Nigerians. I'm curious, Ambassador, how easy or otherwise has it been supporting the Renewed Hope mandate in the face of what has transpired in the outgoing year?
So I didn't get that question, please. Hello?
I'm asking how easy or otherwise it's been supporting the Renewed Hope mandate in the face of all that transpired in Nigeria this year.
Yes, thank you for that question. I think it's not. I wouldn't say it is difficult to support the Renewed Hope, because the case with Nigeria, for me as a person, is a case of perspective. It depends on which perspective you're looking at the situation in Nigeria, because whatever it is that is happening today is a culmination of maybe actions or inactions that has been going on for decades. But then we now have the saddle a government who now decided to say they have to take things by take the bull by the horns and do the needful. The needful, I mean, the necessary actions that needs to be taken to get the country to where the country needs to be. Those necessary steps are necessary steps that have been shied away from by previous regimes because of what this government is facing now from its citizens. For fear of that happening, that was why the main reason why previous administrations have been shying away from that. But we have an administration now who now feels it is now or never. The country has to be propelled to prosperity, and the only way to do that is for this government to take some call it drastic, but I call it necessary actions that has to be taken to take the country out of the doldrum that we've been put into by years of actions or inactions of different governments. So for me, I feel this government is taking the right steps now, even though it's bringing bringing with it some kind of hardships. But then I think that's the reason why some people now term this president the pain. I think it's called. But as far as I'm concerned, I see it differently, because take for instance a woman who wants to have a child. She has to go through certain processes for her to get that child. One of the processes is to become pregnant, and when the time comes for that child to be born, there has to be certain pains that she has to go through for that child to be born. And if you are married, you will understand what I'm about to say now, that for a married person, when your wife is pregnant and she's about to have a child, there's a lot of pain that goes with it. And during that pain, that woman will be running curses on the man, saying all sorts of things. But as soon as the child is born, the woman forgets about all the pain, right? And the joy of having a child in the hand, for me, for her, surpasses whatever pain she's gone through. So that is what the country is going through now. Because like on our program that we do every week, I keep advising Nigerians that we have to be patient and persevere with this government, because this government is taking the right decisions that should have been taken decades ago. But because of the fear of what Nigerians will say when they see what they are going through because of those decisions, that is why other people shied away from it. But our current president now decided, you know what, we have to do what we have to do, because the way I look at this, the current regime is that they are here now to make life better for the country in the very nearest future. So for me, it is no brainer for us to support this government, because we know from the actions they've taken so far that they mean well for this country, and it's just a matter of time that we need to persevere. And
I hear you, Ambassador Adebola. The T-Pain you mentioned earlier, by the way, his supporters online call him T-Gain, but those who call him T-Pain are those who blame the removal of fuel subsidy and unification of exchange rates as some of the policies responsible for plunging countless Nigerians to hardship. We heard Mr. President corroborating your position earlier on during his media chat, saying he doesn't regret those decisions and that they were needful at the time. But how does it get the people on board? Because it's done 18 months now. It was elected for a 4-year tenure. Do you think there is a time span to this pain and to the patience that this administration has been preaching to the Nigerian people? Because you remove 18 months out of a 4-year tenure, with 18 months we are getting close to midterm for this administration. Is there a time frame to the patience that we've been hearing about?
Okay, before I talk about the time frame, let me just correct some kind of impression that people are having now, which is that it is not this president that removed the subsidy. The subsidy was removed by the previous administration because there was no provision for subsidy from June last year. All the president just did was to announce at the parade ground on the Eagle Square that the era of subsidy is gone. And I think him doing that, for me, because I was there at the Eagle Square when he did that, for me, that was a smart move, because if he hadn't said that, right, pressure would have been brought on him upon assumption of office to continue in that anomaly. Don't forget, Buhari himself, before he became the president, he was known to have said on national TV, by asking what is subsidy, that as far as he was concerned, that subsidy was scam. So, but upon becoming the president now, knowing what we know about those who are behind, well, some people call them cabal, those who are behind the fuel subsidy benefit, prevailed upon him, so much so that he had to continue in that trajectory up on the last minute when he was about to go. And all he did was, in the 2024 budget, there was no provision for, the only provision they had for subsidy was for 6 months. And this president knew that. And that was why, as soon as he got onto the rostrum at the Eagle Square, he decided, look, you know what, I have to let people know what is going on so that nobody will come back and begin to bother me. So I just needed to put that across to Nigerians across the globe, that the subsidy was not removed by this president. All the president did was just to announce the reality that he met on ground when he came in. Now, talking about him being there for 18 months, yes, I understand that, yes, he's been there for 18 months. But then one thing we got to understand is, whatever it is that we are going through now, it's a culmination of, it's like I said earlier on, of actions or inactions of decades. You see, it is easy to destroy a house, but to rebuild it, yeah, it's difficult. A house that was, you can bring down a house within minutes, but to rebuild it takes time. So talking about timeline now, you just said that we just 18 months into this administration. But then I would have been worried if this government is not taking the right steps towards ensuring that the country gets out of this doldrum and into a progressive country. I would have been worried. But because the country is, the government is taking positive steps now, that is why I'm confident that in the before this term ends, I can assure you that there'll be a turnaround for good for Nigerians across board. That I can assure you.
Well, Nigerians are also counting on that. You live and work in the UK, so some might say you really may not have a first experience or knowledge of the economic realities back at home. Earlier this month, we saw a series of stampedes in 3 different states. I'm sure you've heard that narrative often. I'm wondering how you respond, but I want you to also touch on the nationwide protest we saw in August. What is your response to critics who say perhaps this administration hasn't done enough to address the concerns of the protesters demanding accountability and reforms at the time?
I think it's a misconception for anybody to think or say that because some of us live in what they term a sinner climb, that we don't know what goes on at home. Believe it or not, the Ebin power syndrome that people shout about in Nigeria is not synonymous to Nigeria alone. I live in the UK. I've been here for decades now, and I do know that we here in the UK we have what they call food bank, where people go to queue. And I'm talking whites now, not just blacks. I'm talking whites, yellow, pink, all colors. Go there to line up to get food. You see, the issue, whatever issue that is going on in Nigeria is global. But sometimes we tend to think it is just synonymous to that country, but it is not. It is a global phenomenon, and every government globally they are all grappling with it one way or the other. You see, but as far as Nigeria is concerned, you see, I keep saying it, whether some people like to believe it or not, the fact remains that we now have a government in place who is very receptive to the needs and yearnings of Nigerians. Nobody had a palliative before this government came in. It was when this government came in that the issue of palliative starts coming in, and that palliative was meant to alleviate the sufferings of the people. Then again, the stampede that you talk about, I think I was talking to somebody about it a couple of days ago. We were arguing about it, and I was saying, look, listen, the problem are twofold. One, people who are giving people free food, they meant well for the people, no doubt about it. But perhaps maybe where they got it wrong was the fact that they did not put necessary security checks or in place. Then again, the second part of it is the Nigerian psyche. Until we had Idi Agbon, Nigeria never knew how to queue for anything. It is always rushing. And I believe perhaps maybe that was what caused that. My commiserations to all those who lost their lives, because one life lost for me is too many. So for me, that is why I feel sad about it. And I would have thought that the organizers of those events should have done better in the area of ensuring that they coordinate it in such a way that there will be no stampede. Because don't forget, this is not the first time we had a stampede. There was a time when during the I think the immigration service, when they said they wanted they were going to recruit people in a stadium that was a stampede. You begin to ask yourself, how can there be a stampede in a stadium that takes about maybe hundreds or maybe 80,000 people? Why should there be a stampede? It boils down to the mindset of Nigerians who don't believe in queuing, or the organizers who themselves did not put the proper checks in place to ensure that those stampedes do not take place. So that's the way I look at it. What's the other question again? I can't remember now. There was one other question you asked me.
Well, I think that you capture it all. You talked about the stampede and your thoughts as regards to Nigeria's orderliness. I had asked about accountability on the part of government and whether or not they are doing enough to resolve the issues raised during the protest. But let's touch on a few other things, because quite a number of things happened this year. I don't think we have enough time to cover it all, but I'd like to hear your thoughts. For instance, we saw Nigeria revert to a national anthem. It dropped nearly 50 years ago, what some consider a colonial national anthem. It happened after lawmakers replaced the current one. And that prompted widespread criticism here in Nigeria over what some called the lack of public consultation on the change. But first, what do you make of this reinstatement? What, in your opinion, does it mean, for instance, for the president's vision for Nigeria?
Thank you very much for that question. I don't subscribe to the school of thought that it was a colonial national anthem. I don't subscribe to that. For me, I think what probably brought about that is the content of one of the paragraphs there that says, even though our tongues differ, right? You know, that even though our tongues may differ, we are brothers. I think for me, that's a unifying factor that probably prompted the president to revert to. And I remember when we hosted him in Chatham House here in the UK during the elections, I think he made an allusion to that he would like that to happen. And I don't think he did it willy-nilly. It passed through the National Assembly. So if the National Assembly assent to it, so I don't think it is proper for anybody to want to say that the president is taking us back 50 years. Because it wasn't as if he did it by fiat. He took it through the normal process, and the House of Assembly, the National Assembly assented to it. So for me, if it's gone through the normal process.
I like that you mentioned the process, Ambassador. The federal lawmakers introduced and passed this bill in less than a week in what is considered an unusually fast process for such an important bill that usually would take weeks or months to be considered. You don't think there is substance in those who are raising an eyebrow to the speedy passage and the criticisms that the people weren't carried along, which really nullifies the whole essence of inspiring patriotism in that regard?
Well, the same people who are saying that are the same people who, given another scenario, would have been accusing the National Assembly of not doing the needful in time. I don't think passing a national anthem should be so. It's not a rigorous exercise. I don't think, because it's just a question of, okay, between these two, which do we think matches the don't forget, there's a lot of agitations from different parts of the country recently about secession or no secession. So for me, I believe perhaps maybe that was what informed the National Assembly to pass it as speedily as you said that they did, because of the same paragraph that I was talking about, that even though our tongue differs, that we have a lot that unites us than divides us. So I think, given the exigency of the time, perhaps maybe that was what informed the National Assembly to do what they did. But then again, if you have to flip the coin to say for instance, if the National Assembly decided to wait on it and pass it through all the rigorous exercise of going through every first reading, second reading, third reading, and the rest of them, these same Nigerians would have come up against it. Not the only national anthem when I want change. Why all this wahala? So you see, it's all about perspective. How do you see it? But for me, because it's just a national it's not national anthem, I don't see the need for it to go through any rigorous test or anything. It's just a matter of if the House agrees that, okay, we should revert to the old national anthem. Yes, we should. And again, I'll reiterate that I don't believe that it is a colonial national anthem. No, I don't.
Okay, I hear you clearly, and I understand your position. Let me read a tweet here from Obieze Kwesili, who posted on X in this regard. She had mentioned that in the 21st century Nigeria, the country's political class found a colonial national anthem that has pejorative words like native land and tribes to be admirable enough to foist on our citizens without their consent. I'm just highlighting some of the sentiments, that trailed this decision. So this happened at the time when inflation had reached a 28-year high of about 33%. And you hear critics dismiss the change as a cynical distraction from an escalating economic crisis. The bone of contention here really has to do with how much rallying did the decision get from the generality of the Nigerian public. Except we're saying that public interest doesn't matter. What would be the import of seeing this change under a different administration? Did this administration get the generality of support from the people? Some have suggested that a better way to do it would have even been to throw it open to the generality of the public. Let Nigerians come up with their own composition. It's a national anthem. It's supposed to be the identity of the generality of our people.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. But then I think what we are forgetting is when we had the national anthem, it was the generality national the national anthem for the generality of Nigerians at the time. So the question is, what changed between then and now? Why can we have it then and we cannot have it now? I think that should be the big question. The big question. So for me, if you ask me, I think those who have those sentiments, they are entitled to their sentiments, no doubt about it. But then again, I'm saying, on my own perspective, is that if we had that national anthem at some point in this country and everybody sang to it proudly, and at some point we decided to bring it back, why was it good then and it's not good now? I think that's the main question.
All right. Let us take a short break, Ambassador. When we return, we'll open the phone lines and, get people's thoughts on this. Sometime later, we're also going to talk about your Renewed Hope Global Virtual Town Hall Conference, what you've been able to achieve with that, and touch on a few other components of the events that shaped the outgoing year. Stay with us, everyone. Don't go away.
Hello, TVC Communications. How can I help?
What makes TVC the right choice for my business?
Excellent question, sir. Let me share some exciting facts with you.
Start your day on TVC Entertainment with Wake Up Nigeria, a family and lifestyle show. Your view empowers women globally.
It's your view, let it count.
Entertainment Splash delivers the hottest celebrity trends. On TVC News, we keep you informed with breaking news and in-depth analysis of events shaping the world.
I will continue to speak the truth.
TVC News at 7 and TVC News at 10 p.m. delivers the most important stories of the day. Max FM, your hit music radio station, captivates listeners daily across Lagos and Abuja, making every commute more enjoyable. Adebola 88.9 FM is not left out, as it is the voice of Southwest. And on TVC Digital, we reach to million viewers daily. All together, pulls in over 17 million viewers daily. Contact us on 0707-272-8338 or marketing at tvccommunications.tv. Partner with TVC Communications today. Let's grow together.
Every major news story is with many perspectives and layered with different levels of impact.
Honey, what time did this happen? We will be right there.
At TVC News, we follow the big and major news, gathering the facts, witnessing the outcome.
I am here live at the aftermath of the approval of the new national minimum wage.
We are TV Station of the Year, not just for breaking news, but for being first, fair and accurate. TVC News, first with breaking news.
What a year it's been for Nigerians, the year 2024. And I'm joined by Ambassador Joseph Adebola, Chairman of the Renewed Hope UK, to talk about the 2024 in retrospect. Thank you for staying the course on the program, Ambassador. After a lot of back and forth, earlier this year, we saw government and organized labor agreeing to a new national minimum wage. In fact, Labour was asking for as high as 615,000 naira, but they eventually got 70. How do you see this new minimum wage impact on the average Nigerian, considering our current economic challenges?
Thank you very much for that question. I think on our Renewed Hope conference, we've dealt with this issue once or twice. For me, yes, the labor movement was asking for about 650 or something there, about 1,000 a month. But the question is this sustainable under the economy that we have? I think not. And I think a lot of negotiations, went into it between the government and the labor union. And the federal government on its own part, because they are the ones who sees the books and who sees how much the country is making and who sees how the strength and the weakness of the country. And they were able to come up with 70,000 pounds, 70,000 naira a month. I think that is, for me, it's an improvement from what we had. Don't forget, before then it was 30,000. And before 30,000, it was 18,000. So 18,000 to 30,000 and 30,000 to 70,000, there's a huge gap between 30 to 70 than 18 to 30. So for me, I think, because I think the president himself has said it, that this may not be the last of the minimum wage issue, because as the company progresses, of course, the federal government and the labor union, they are at liberty to go back again onto the drawing table and to see what else can be done. But for me, I think going from 30,000 to 70,000 is a good move from the federal government, because it shows that the federal government itself feels the pain of the people, and that is why they were able to come up with that kind of figure. Again, you cannot expect government to promise what it cannot deliver. So that's is my take on it.
Let's try to open the phone lines now. Mr. George has called in from Ikeja. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. George. Please go ahead with your contribution. I'm not sure it's there. We'll get back to that call subsequently. Ambassador, we also saw a cabinet reshuffle. I think in October, President Tinubu sacked 5 ministers, appointed 7 new ones. Among the new appointments, we saw new ministers for humanitarian affairs and poverty reduction, which has a very rich history considering what happened to the previous minister. A new minister for trade and investment, I think labor and livestock development as well. He also reassigned about 10 other ministers to new portfolios, and this shake-up, according to him, is designed to make his administration more efficient. What message do you think the president's cabinet reshuffle is sending out there, especially the international community, regarding his commitment to good governance?
Thank you very much for that question. I think the message is very clear, which is that anybody appointed by this government cannot sit pretty at any time, because don't forget the president has the power to hire and fire, and I believe because I think he set up he has this a lady who's monitoring the activities of all the ministers. So perhaps I believe he did that rejigging of his cabinet based on reports that was given to him as to the performances of those who are either sacked or those who are deployed. So as far as I'm concerned, I mean, don't forget that not too long ago we had a government that never reassigned any the cabinet. So if you have one now that is saying, you know what, after a while, I'm going to do to reshuffle, my cabinet. I think the message is sending out is not just to the outsiders alone. It is sending a message to whoever is given the opportunity to serve the country, that they have to serve well in order to retain their position. So for me, it's a good move. And I don't think that will be the last. Perhaps maybe there'll be another one in not too distant future, hopefully.
Mr. George has called back. Good morning. Mr. George, can you hear me at all?
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you now. Please go ahead with your
Hello?
contribution.
Can you hear me?
Clearly, I can. Go ahead with your contribution.
Okay. Good morning, and good morning to the guest.
Good morning.
Well, the topic of today's discussion is 2024 in retrospect. For me, I think it's been a year of mixed happenings, a year of reforms. And we know that wherever there are reforms and changes, it usually comes with pains. So it's understandable when people are complaining that there are pains associated with these reforms. For me, what makes me happy about it, in spite of the pains, is the attitude of the driver of the reforms, that is the president. He is very sure, he's very confident, and he believes strongly that it will bring about positive results. That is what matters in endeavors. The driver is sure, and that his surety and determination is what brings help, that brings good results. That's my consolation for it. But if you also talked about timeline, that when we begin to see positive results. I believe that between now and the next Christmas, we will begin to see betterness. For example, the fuel price that jumped to 1,300, 1,400 in Lagos now is already below 1,000. If it is starting in that, and 2 refineries are working, there is every likelihood that within the year 2025 again, additional refineries will work. All those things will begin to bring down the prices, and it will be cascading gradually to other things in the market. I believe that. You also you mentioned something about a tweet which the Mrs. Obi Ezekwesili wrote about national anthem. I am baffled by her response to a national issue, especially as a former minister of the Republic of this country. For her to say that she will refuse to recite the national anthem because she doesn't like the wordings, I don't know where to understand that one from. In a country where you have been a minister, do you have to be the one to compose the national anthem? The wordings of the national anthem, Nifemi, I can assure you that the lives of Obi Ezekwesili are very few. There are millions of Nigerians that resonate with that national anthem. I meant recently, I went to the village, and I saw some 5-6 year old children. They were singing and reciting this national anthem, 3 verses. The 3 verses upheld. It has been accepted to that level. But let's take it for granted that a change has come. Do we forbid a change? What example is a former minister of the Republic telling children that you cannot recite the national anthem?
Just for some clarity, Mr. George, the tweet I read did not carry that message. I want to be sure.
To the change in national
well, I doubt if Mr. George can hear me.
As a yardstick measuring,
but I just need to clarify, Mr. George, that I'm not sure Mrs. Obi did say that people should not recite the anthem. The tweet I read was about her opinion on a colonial dimension to the tweet. But Ambassador, I could see you nod and smile all along. You seem to agree completely with what the gentleman was talking about. Yes. But I'm sure you also agree that this administration has more people than Mr. George and you to convince, right?
So I didn't get the last question.
I'm sure you also agree that Mr. President has more than you and Mr. George to convince as to the import of his policies and decisions.
Well, it doesn't need to convince me because I'm already convinced, because I know, because like Mr. George says, he says he knows that what he's doing will lead to a better result for the country. I'm with that school of thought too. You see, perhaps, I don't know, I think the issue with certain people is when, perhaps maybe for reasons best known to themselves, no matter what the president does today, they will not agree with it. So I think they are entitled to their opinion, just like me too. I'm entitled to my opinion by seeing what he's doing now as the necessary steps that needs to be taken to get the country. Because listen, we cannot be doing things the same way we've been doing it and to expect different results. If you want a different result, you have to stop doing what you are doing and change tack, which is what the president is doing. And like the last caller said, he said he believes that the man is sure of what he's doing. I believe too, because well, if you have, I don't know if you have met with the president. I've had the opportunity of meeting with him twice, and on both occasions he brought me over with his plans for this country, and that is why I'm not surprised, because I met him before he became the president anyway. So that is why I'm not surprised at what he is doing now, because he hinted us in one of the meetings that we had with him. We had about 3 hours discussion with him in his house here in the UK, and that was when I became convinced that this is the man for this country at this hour. Because a lot of things he said to us on that day, I have never had any leader had that clear vision as to where to take our country. Because he seems to know the problem, and not only that, he seems to know the solutions to it. And he knows at the time that the solutions is going to bring a lot of blowback to him and his government. He knew that at the time, but he's well determined to say, you know what, I need to get this country. I think the man is just trying to leave a legacy for himself, that he is the man who came and saw and conquered. So for me, that is why every time, because I write every Saturday for my conference, and in every of my write-ups, I'm always pleading with Nigeria that we should be patient, we should be perseverant, and we should pray for the country, for the president, because believe it or not, the man means well for this country. And if only people would just take time to study all the policies that have been churning out so far, they will see that these are policies that should have been done so many years ago, even before Buhari came in. Some of these things should have been done many years ago. But because of the kind of blowback that this man is getting now, that was what made previous leaders to shy away from it. But he says, look, I've got nothing to lose. I have to do what this country needs to get to a progressive country. And for me, that is why he has my support, and he will come for as long as he remains on this trajectory, he will always have my support.
All right. What really is this virtual town hall conference about? Who are the audience, and what kind of feedback are you getting, especially as regards this administration's effort in the past 18 months?
Thank you very much for that question. The Renewed Hope Global Virtual Town Hall Conference, let me start from the beginning. It's a child of necessity. It was born, you see, out of the need to counter the insidious narratives, by some unscrupulous elements whose stock in trade is maligning the image of Nigeria and the government. And it saddens us to note that these elements that we're talking about are both Nigerians and non-Nigerians. And they are both in and outside Nigeria. And they do that daily for reasons best known to them. I'm in my 60s now, and I have the kind of Nigeria they paint to me is kind of strange. So that was why some of us progressives in the UK decided, and across diaspora, and even some in Nigeria, we all came together and said, you know what, we have to do something about this. We cannot leave the narratives to these guys, because you see, there's this saying that when you allow lies to fester for too long, it begins to morph into the truth. So that was why we came up and said, you know what, we have to bridge the gap here. Even though we know people in government are doing their best, but Nigerians have this penchant of not wanting to believe people in government. So we decided, okay, let's set up something that will at least bridge the gap and where we'll be able to bring people in government, to come and engage with Nigerians across the globe. And we have people tuning in from any country you can think of on this planet Earth, from Russia, from America, from Belgrade, from Germany, even from across Africa. And we do it every Saturday. And it's been to the glory of God that every single door that we knock of the people in government, they have always been glad to come and discuss with Nigeria. And all we're simply doing is giving a veritable platform for our leaders to engage with Nigerians across the globe on matters of states. What is it they are doing, and why they are doing what they are doing, and what people should expect from what they are doing. And that is what informs my doggedness in supporting this administration, because so far we've been doing this now for over a year now, and so far none of the people that we knocked on their doors has ever refused us. And each time they come, they're always very free with their information. Many of them, even I can remember Minister Keyamo came on our program and he gave 2 different exposés that he has never told anybody on this program. Same thing with Dr. Mustafa Abdullahi, is the DG and CEO of the Energy Commission. I was so shocked that I said, until he came there, I never knew that we had an agency called Energy Commission in Nigeria, until he came and he started this reforms that he's doing there. I mean, those guys are doing fantastically well there. And he came, and in fact, he has even come about 2 or 3 times. Sometimes maybe if he's just traveling, and he comes on our program and he just joins in and says 1 or 2 things. It's the same thing with Honorable Babatunde Ogala too.
Ambassador, allow me to butt in. I'm curious. Have you had the Minister of Power on that conversation?
Now he's part of the plan for 2025.
Yeah, because I asked that question because in the last media chat Mr. President had, he was talking about how effective his ministers are and how convinced he is that they are all performing. We had a caller on the show, the man who spoke earlier, Mr. George, made reference to how the national grid has collapsed a record 12 times this year. And that has really exacerbated the country's power supply challenge. And I remember him calling out the Minister of Power. I was saying if he was at that media chat, he would have mentioned him as an exception to Mr. President's claim during that interview. Does that bother you? Because it's important that we also do not over-glorify the performance of an administration. We need to be able to speak truth to power, especially where it pinches people and how it affects them, their welfare, because that's the best we can do for an administration so that they can do better. I'm wondering if you think there's an emergency measure that must be put in place by this administration. No doubt we've seen the power supply improve, especially with the cost-reflective approach. It is more expensive now, but you have more power. But it now looks as if we don't even have the infrastructure, to sustain it with the very many times we've seen the national grid collapse in the outgoing year. Do you consider this an emergency for this administration? How do you see them address the frequent collapses and provide perhaps a more stable power supply for Nigerians?
Thank you very much for that question. And I have to commend you for admitting that, yes, power has improved. But then the fact remains that unless we fix the power in that country, nothing else will work. That much is clear to everybody. And I think that is the reason why this government is doing everything possible to ensure that that is being fixed. But like I said to you, we have it on, in our plan to have the minister on our program because we're on recess now. So we're starting again in January. So he's one of the ministers that we've penned down to appear on our program. And I believe he's doing his best, because whether we like it or not, we cannot discount the element of sabotage in what is happening in the power sector. But then that is no excuse that the government shouldn't find a way to nip that in the bud. That much is clear. So for that, I think But it's like you said, we have to balance it. I don't believe in just criticizing stuff without actually getting the basic facts regarding what it is. But that's what I just said to you now, that as far as I can see, it looks like there's sabotage in it. But then the government needs to do more to nip that in the bud, so that moving forward, like I said, even what we are generating that you consider as improvement, for me, is still not enough. Until we have a 24/7 power supply in Nigeria, most industries, will still suffer. So I think that is where this government is trying to take us to, and they just need our support and encouragement.
And that's exactly the point I'm making, because you guys live in the UK. You should be the one raising the standard for this administration, so that they don't celebrate what is not even considered a globally acceptable minimum for power supply. Let us talk about some improvement in the oil and gas sector. We saw the Dangote refinery commencing operation this year. The $20 billion refinery began operations, producing diesel and aviation fuel. We also saw the PH refinery coming on board. What do this mean? What real impact do you see it have on Nigeria's economy in the new year? And what role do you foresee this administration play in supporting the refinery success?
Thank you very much for that question again. I think we've already, I think the last caller made allusion to the gains that we are beginning to see, because for now, the Dangote is on stream. Port Harcourt is back on now. That has led to a slight reduction in the price of PMS on the street. So in 2025, because I think from information that I'm gathering now, Kaduna Refinery is likely to come on board again in 2025. So by the time we have one or two or three more refineries coming on board, it is a no-brainer to know that the price of fuel will come down more and more and more as we progress in having all our refineries working. Because, like I said, you see, every a journey of 1,000 miles starts with just one step, and this country, this government is already taking those steps. Some call it baby steps, but I call it a step anyway. Either baby or baby step or adult step. A step is a step. It is better than no step at all. So the fact that they are moved, Port Harcourt is back on, and Kaduna refinery too is coming up. For me, it's a progress in the making, and it's like I always say, we just need to be patient, because sometimes Nigerians are too impatient. We want something. Some of us live in the microwave age now, where you just want something fast. But we always tend to forget that whatever starts fast always ends fast. So anything that does not follow gradual process may not last. So that is why we need that patience now, and to begin, to pray for this administration to ensure that they lead us to where we actually want to be. So that is my own take on it.
All eyes on the 2025 budget. It's tagged the budget of restoration. Another feature of that budget, as we've seen, is defense taking the largest chunk, over 4 trillion naira. The National Bureau of Statistics mentioned that Nigerians paid over 2 trillion naira in a period of a year on ransom. I mean, that's perhaps one of the biggest revelations we got this year. I recall speaking with the Kaduna State Governor about what he termed the non-kinetic approach to solving this problem. He has a system in place now that gives some form of ransom, to criminals, and he said it's worked in quelling the issue of kidnapping. Number one, do you consider it norm that the largest chunk of our spending plan goes to defense? And do you think we can do more in non-kinetic efforts that won't require spending so much?
Thank you for that question. I think it is right and proper for the government to spend that much on defense, because whether you like it or not, we live in perilous times now, and such times call for drastic measures. And I don't see how the government can get on top of it without equipping our security agencies. And don't forget, this year alone has seen with with the money that's going into defense now, we've seen the kind of successes that they've recorded against banditry. Many of their leaders has either been killed or captured, and many of the abductees have been released. It is all down to the government now doing the needful, ensuring that our security men are well equipped. Because unless we do that, there is no way that we're going to overcome this banditry and all these other things going on in the country. So for me, for the country to be able to get on top of these things, we need to properly equip our military men, and the only way to do that is to spend money. So I'm sure in 2025 we'll see a further reduction in the act of banditry, and by maybe in the next 2 years, the country will definitely be the better for it.
Well, I recall speaking with the special advisor, I think senior special advisor to the president on foreign affairs and foreign relations, and he's talked about the Nigerian profile abroad growing over the years. You live in the UK. What's our image like now, especially considering the coloration of corruption and what have you? Do you think we've done better in the past 18 years?
Well, again, it's all about, like I said, it's all about perception. Because
perception is everything, Ambassador. Perception is king, right?
Yeah, the perception is everything. But like I said, this government, whether some people like to agree or not, is doing a lot in terms of ensuring that you see that there's no way you can eliminate corruption anywhere in the world. Even here in the UK, we have it. But what this government is doing that I seem to agree with is the fact that they are doing their utmost best to ensure that they reduce it to the barest minimum. It's going to take time, because don't forget, this thing has been going on even before people like you and me were born. So it has become endemic. It has become cancerous, and everybody sees. If you see somebody in Nigeria complaining now, there's this saying that he's just complaining because he hasn't got there. Yeah, by the time he gets there, he will do the same thing. So that tells you that this thing has become endemic.
All right.
So it's going to take a while, for it to be done. Is the government doing something? Yes. Have they done enough? No. Can they do better? Yes. But the fact is, they are not leaving anything to chance. They are doing whatever they can. They have to do.
Hold that thought for a minute, Ambassador. We've had a caller from UK. Good morning, Reverend Gabriel. You will have to turn down the volume of your TV so we can hear you clearly. Reverend Gabriel, are you there? Well, I'm afraid we can't use that. We have to go, Ambassador. What a conversation it's been. What a year it's been as well. Nigerians are counting on Mr. President's promises, especially when he talks about the necessary decisions he's made in the past 18 months. They are looking forward to how much impact it will have on their own standard of living. For instance, how much does it cost to exchange money for the basic things they need to feed, to live, and to send their children to school? What do you anticipate will happen in the new year?
Well, I'm anticipating that things will get better gradually. It's not going to get better fast. That's a fact. So anybody who's expecting that should bury that thought. Things will get better, but it will get better on a gradual basis. So that's why I keep saying all we just need is patience, perseverance, and prayer, so that whatever is being done now yields the right results for the country, because we don't have any other country than Nigeria, and all we just need to do is to pray for that country, to succeed. And I believe that there's a light at the end of the tunnel if only we persevere and if only we are patient enough.
Ambassador Joseph Adebola is chairman, Renewed Hope UK. He also convenes the Renewed Hope Global Virtual Town Hall Conference. Thank you for talking to us on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me.
That's our show today. Thanks for being a part of it. I am Nifemi Uguntoye. See you again soon.